Welcome, everyone. This is the Full Count Major League Baseball show for Thursday, June the 2nd, 2022. Can hardly even believe it's June, gentlemen, but I have some of my best friends here with me, as always. Jesse Schule of SportsMemo.com and also Eric Pauly of SportsMemo.com. Welcome to the show, guys. And before we get started, Jesse, you have anything special going on tonight with Game 1 of the NBA Finals or Game 2 of the NHL Western Conference or WNBA or cricket matches overseas or the KBO?
Yes to the first two anyways. I'm not sure if you're aware, but every year before the finals, I put out some proposition bets on the series. Starting in 2017, I went 6-0 with those bets, and I have swept the board in 3 of the last 5 years. So I'm pretty excited about that. And I do have prop bets available for the series. I got the series winner, the MVP winner, and another ATS prop bet as well. So look forward to that.
Eric, what do you got going on tonight?
Yeah, of course. So I have a 3-pack of MLB picks for my Thursday card tonight. I'm laying off the NBA tonight because I thought that the lines were a little skewed. I was surprised to see them how they came out. So I'm going to take a back seat on Game 1, see how both teams perform, and look to make a wager potentially in Game 2. But yes, I have a 3-pack of MLB picks for tonight.
Awesome. I'm still humbly flying pretty high in the NBA, 71% over the last 48. I can hardly even believe I'm saying that, but it's been a pretty good run. I don't have anything on the side tonight, and to be honest with you, the consensus of 76% of the people on the Warriors is making me nervous. So we do have a total, though, that's a 4%, and those totals for the NBA season are at 77%. And I have WNBA and Major League Baseball also up for tonight, so make sure you get over there. And while I'm at it, Sports Memo was kind enough to give us all a great offer. It's 30 days at $7 a day. That's like the equivalent of getting an IPA and not tipping your bartender each day. That's all it is, $7. I mean, if you can't afford that, you should be, raising animals or something, or taking walks. I don't know what else you would do. If you're into sports and sports betting, $7 a day is ridiculously cheap. You can get any one of the three of us right now. And take advantage of that because June is a big month. We still have a lot of NHL and Major League Baseball. Football is right around the corner, too. Can't wait. But this is a Major League Baseball show, so let's get started with the first game. And that first game is the San Diego Padres, the fathers of the National League West, are in second place behind the Houston Astros. They're taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. National League Central leaders now. They're in first place with a 32-20 record, 12 games over 500. And San Diego is 10 games over 500. Pretty even matchup here. You got a decent pitching matchup as well with Sean Manaea, 2-3, 4.02 ERA. Adrian Hauser, 3-5. I think he could be 5-3 quite easily. ERA of 3.69. Let's start with Jesse Schule and see what he has for us in this matchup tonight.
All right, John. Well, we got the Brewers in first place in the NL Central. 14-6 at home, hosting the Padres, second in the NL West, 17-10 on the road. You mentioned the two pitchers, Manaea versus Hauser, sort of similar numbers, but perhaps their recent performances are more relevant. Looking at Manaea, he's allowed 3 or more runs in 5 straight starts, and he's allowed 5 home runs in those starts. So that's of some concern to me. I'm looking at Hauser, and he has some Jekyll and Hyde split stats, namely his home being a lot better than on the road. He's 2-2 with a 1.99 ERA in 4 home starts. He did face the Cardinals twice last year. He did not factor in the decision for either of those starts, but he had a 1.86 ERA. The Brewers are 8-3 in the last 11 head-to-head meetings, so I'm going to lean on the Brewers here.
I like that pick. I like that pick already. Let's see if Eric Pauly agrees with us on this matchup tonight.
Yeah, so I agree with Jesse in terms of the fact that I'm very interested in the starting pitching matchup. I'm actually going for a different angle on this game. I'm looking at actually the under for total runs in this matchup. Looking at the Padres coming off a sweep to the Cardinals, and the Brewers split their last series with the Cubs, but they lost the last 2. This is the 4th time these teams are going to face off this season, and the Brewers are 2-1 in those matchups. But taking a look a little bit more in depth at the Padres, they're 17-10 on the road this season, with 3 of those losses actually just coming on the road in St. Louis. Shomanai is 2-3 with a 4.02 ERA, a 1.11 WHIP, but a 3.88 fielding independent pitching. So it looks like his stats should maybe come and be a little bit better than his ERA is showing. The Padres are 4-5 in games he started this season. In his last 3 outings, he's allowed 10 runs on 15 hits in 20 innings. But he had 12 strikeouts 3 starts ago, so he has had some pretty good stuff this season. The Brewers are not good against left-handed pitching. They're batting just 648 for the OPS on that against left-handed pitching. So, again, it kind of tells me that I'm not expecting too many runs. But looking at Milwaukee, the Brewers are much better at home, like Jesse alluded to, and Hauser being one of them. Milwaukee has the second best ERA at home in the National League with a 3.33 ERA. The Brewers are 3-1 in games that Hauser started this season, and actually just on 523, he pitched against the Padres in San Diego, allowed just 1 run on 3 hits through 6 innings. The Padres hit very poorly against right-handed pitching as well. They're batting the OPS of 639. So with 2 offenses struggling against those kind of opposing pitching, the way the Brewers pitch at home as a team, I'm going with the under for this matchup.
It's great stuff there. I like that pick too. This is going to be a pitching series. I think you got a tremendous matchup tomorrow on Friday with these 2 teams. We'll leave that for tomorrow's show, but you can't get any more even with these teams. Batting average 233 overall for the Brewers, 232 for the Padres. Hits per game 7.76 for the Padres, 7.75 for Milwaukee. I mean, they are just incredibly even, but the difference maker in this matchup, I agree with you, is the pitching. Let's move on to the next matchup here, and that is the St. Louis Cardinals are playing their National League Central rival, Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are in 4th position in National League Central, while the St. Louis Cardinals are in 2nd. With a 29-21 record, they're certainly playoff contenders as a wild card more than likely, but they are a sound fundamental team. Liberator is on the hill. He is 1-0, ERA 3.72. Keegan Thompson is on the hill for the Cubs. He's a perfect 5-0, gentlemen. ERA of 1.57, one of the elite starters this year, and a name that is not one that is recognized year after year after year. So let's start with Eric this time and see what he's got in this matchup for us.
Yeah, of course. So it's interesting. We have the last 2 opponents of the first matchup that we just went over are now facing each other. So as we know, the Cardinals swept the Padres at home last series. The Cubs split the series with Milwaukee, but won the last 2 of those games. And as the NL Central foes, it's a little bit late in the season for their first matchup, but this will be the first time that the Cardinals and Cubs face off this season. The Cardinals are at 7-3 in their last 10 on a 3-game winning streak. Matthew Liberatore is a 22-year-old lefty with his 3rd start of the season. The Cardinals are 2-0 in games that he's pitched this season. He got actually the win in his last start against the Brewers, but it's really not enough information on Liberatore as he's only gone 9.2 innings. His ERA is 3.72 with the fielding independent pitching of 4.18. So not a lot to really tell from that side. And given the line of really it was an even matchup, that kind of tells you that. But I'm very interested in the Cubs, and this is kind of why I lean toward the Cardinals, especially if the Cubs get out to a hot start, to maybe take the if the Cubs get to a hot start, to the Cardinals live on the money line. Chicago's won their last 2 and are 5-5 of their last 10, but they're just 9-17 when they play at Wrigley Field. Keegan Thompson, this is his 4th start. He's 5-0 in those 3 starts, but 2 of those appearances, were out of the bullpen. He's got a 1.58 ERA, a 3.49 fielding independent pitching, which is solid, and a 1.03 WHIP. And the Cubs are 8-3 when Thompson is involved in the action. But all 3 of those losses have came when the Cubs were at home. So the Cardinals have a 696 OPS against righties, which is nothing too crazy. Again, my angle for this game would be that if the Cubbies get a run or 2 early in the game, to maybe bank on the Cardinals on a live bet after they knock out Thompson and maybe getting some runs on that kind of bad Cubs bullpen.
I like that quite a bit. I like that in-game strategy quite a bit. You can do that with some big favorites too. Wouldn't have worked so well with the Dodgers this past 3 games, but overall, it does pan out if you you literally take the big favorite and then hope that dog scores first, and you get bargains. You get really good bargains doing that. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You move on to the next game to bet. You never force a bet. Let's move on to our 3rd and final matchup in the Thursday card, and this is I call this the arbitrage matchup. And I'll explain what that is in a second. But the New York Mets are first in the National League East and leading that, I think, by 10 games over the second place Braves. And I'm not even sure if the Phillies are actually in that division anymore. But the Los Angeles Dodgers have been struggling, but they're still first in the National League West, and they still are almost twice as many wins as losses, despite the 3-game sweep by the Pittsburgh Pirates. And it's an interesting note. Pittsburgh is 20-21 on the season if they don't play Milwaukee. So they're not a bad team to keep on your radar. They're 0-6 against Milwaukee, but the rest of the league, they're 20-21. So they're a team that you cannot underestimate, and they're very, very young. But this game is about the Mets and the Dodgers. So the Mets are on a 6-game winning streak. And what we're doing here is the arbitrage. We're selling something high. We're selling the Mets because they're on a streak. Now they're playing a team not named Philadelphia or not named anybody in the National League East, and that is one of the best teams, if not the best team in all of baseball, the Dodgers. And the Dodgers have not played well. They got swept by Pittsburgh, as I mentioned, and now we're buying a big asset here cheaply. So we're selling the Mets, simultaneously buying the Dodgers, and that's why I call this a great arbitrage play. And I do like the Dodgers quite a bit, but more on that later. Let's turn this over to Jesse Schule and see if he agrees with me or if he wants to bet some pizzas with me on this game.
I do not disagree with you, but when I looked at this game, I decided that I'm going to toss out the sides. I'm not looking at the side, and I'm not looking at the starting pitching. What I'm looking at is this is two of the best teams in baseball. The Mets ranked second in scoring, first in team batting average. The Dodgers ranked first in scoring, fifth in team batting average. And both these teams clearly can hit the ball and score a lot of runs. And it's no surprise that they're riding over trends. The Mets have gone over in 8 of their last 9 overall. The Dodgers have gone over in 10 of their last 12 at home. The over is 9-1 in the Dodgers' last 10, when the total is in a range of 7 to 8.5. So I'm looking at this total of 8.5, and I think it should be 9 or higher. And given the trends, I love to ride these trends. I don't know if you guys know about this, but about 5 years ago, the Detroit Tigers went over in 18 straight games. And a national publication interviewed me as one of the only handicappers in the world that rode all of those overs for that entire 18-game streak. And when they asked me why I did it, I said they never moved the line. It stayed at 8.5 the entire time. And here we are riding these trends, and totals 8.5. I'll go over till they start going under.
I like that take quite a bit. I'm glad you mentioned that historical, because that was quite an accomplishment, Jesse. That hats off to you for that one. That's an amazing stat. But I have a contrarian question for you. Gonsolin is on the hill tonight, 5-0, 1.80 ERA. The Dodgers have to be a little pissed off in that locker room after losing to the Pirates, I would think. Are you concerned at all that that the Mets won't be able to score against him?
Like I said, they find a way to score often enough that as good as Gonsolin might be, he's not usually pitching against the team with the number 1 batting average in baseball. So I think the quality of New York's bats will allow them to at least penetrate for a few hits and runs against a starting pitcher such as Gonsolin.
Fair enough. And did you know the Mets, despite their record being so good and despite being first in the National League East, lead the majors in games in which they had a lead and lost at 10. Imagine what could have been or could be. But the Mets are a solid team, and I think that's just an anomaly that will not haunt them for the entire season. They're too good to let that bother them. Let's move over to Eric here and see what he's got for us in this matchup.
Yeah, so that's actually a very interesting stat, John. I mean, the Mets record could certainly be bolstered if they, pulled off some of those wins. It might be concerning toward the end of the season. I mean, of course, the Mets will get DeGrom and Scherzer back for ideally a stretch run, but that is definitely something to keep in note because the Mets, again, have been plagued by some trends, especially last year where they were one of the worst team in baseball as far as the scoring position, which is why they couldn't win ball games. Now, like Jesse mentioned, they're hitting the baseball, they're getting on base, and not only just in terms of straight batting average, but the Mets as a collective team have a .339 on base percentage, which is the top percentage of the National League. And in this matchup against Tony Gonsolin, the Mets actually have the second best OPS against right-handed pitching behind those Dodgers, and the Mets OPS is 763. The Dodgers MLB best at 783 OPS versus righties. So I definitely would lean toward the Mets on the run line in this game with that +1.5, just given that you have really two great baseball games, and I'm sure it's going to be some high-intensity playoff caliber, even though we're a little bit over 50 games into the season. The Mets are 8-10, 8-2 in their last 10. But the issue for me and why it's hard to back the Mets is it's very, very grueling for a team to hop on an airplane after playing 3 straight games and fly across the entire country to face a team that's struggling. But we all know how good the Dodgers can be when they turn it on. You're talking about how good the Dodgers can be when either it's on or off. Of course, they got swept by the Pirates this past series. But in their last 10 games, they're 6-4, and they still have outscored their opponents by 24 runs, despite even being swept in those last 3 games. So I would lean Mets run line. I think it's a no bet for me because, again, of that travel. I think if anything's going to bog the Mets down, it's that. I'm excited to see how Walker and Gonsolin pitch. But if I did have to, again, make a statement, I do like Jesse's take very much so on the over. I would lean Mets run line, but I'm looking at no action for this game.
Awesome stuff, guys. That was a great breakdown on that game. And now it's the best part of the show, at least for the viewers. It's kind of tough on us because we have to come up with our best bets for the show. And I will clarify, sometimes it's been brought up to me that, one of our premium bets that we gave out on the show didn't win, or it did win. Nice call. But whether wins or loses, these are show best bets. Sometimes they are the same as we give to our premium clients, and we will make note of that on the air. So if we don't say that it's not a premium client, then it is a show best bet, but it is worthy enough that we are going to bet it with our own money later in the day after the show is over and get to the window. So I hope that clarifies that. And I guess I'll start things off here with the best bet segment. And as you can tell from the previous discussion of this game, I'm on the Dodgers. And I've studied Tony Gonsolin, and I haven't, in past years, he hasn't been around that long, but I haven't been all that impressed, but now I am. His spin rates are among the elite in Major League Baseball right now. Walker for the Mets also has some pretty high levels, but Gonsolin is just a little bit better. And he's not your typical pitcher. He is, typically we have guys that throw fastball 55, 60% of the time, and then they mix in the breaking pitches to keep guys off balance, mix in the change up accordingly, whether it's a right-hander or a left-hander. And in the case of Gonsolin, he throws the fastball, which is a four-seamer with pretty good movement, only 33% of the time. His pitch is the splitter. And the splitter he throws 28% of the time, not as much as the fastball, but that ratio is among the tightest of any of the elite pitchers that are out there right now in Major League Baseball. And then he has a slider that is just outstanding, and then he mixes in a curve, and he won't be afraid to throw that curve any time in the count, first pitch to a lefty, righty, it doesn't matter. His confidence is really high right now. I'm not saying he's going to throw a no-hitter tonight. He might give up 3 or 4 runs to these Mets because, to Jesse's point, the Mets are a very good team, and they have a very good offense that can get to anybody if they have the time to get it. And at Major League Baseball, a pitcher makes a mistake. I don't care if you're the best pitcher in the world. It's going to get hit a mile. Even with the changes in the baseball, it's going to get hit hard, and it's going to get hit often. Average spin rate on Gonsolin's slider is 2,500, which is elite. That's up there with Rich Hill. Four-seam fastball has a lot of – most guys are like 1,800. He's at 2,300. The spin rate makes it break, and it makes it break hard and sharper and later. And that's the whole key. The ball might be looking like it's coming right down the middle of the plate, and the batters, just want to kill it. And then as they start to swing, you'll see it, especially to a right-hander, you'll see it ride right in on their hands. And it's fun. If you like baseball and the granular type of stuff I'm talking about, you'll really appreciate this guy tonight. So I am on the Dodgers. I also have a betting angle of the day, too, for us, and that is on this game. And you're going to bet on home teams. The starting pitcher gives up less than half a home run per start, which Gonsolin certainly does. And after a game where the bullpen was rocked for 5 or more earned runs, and that happened last night with Pittsburgh, with 2 relievers giving up 2 and 3 runs, respectively, in the 8th and 9th innings, And I smile about that because it's hard to believe that the Dodgers actually were that inept for 3 games in a row. But I think they will come out with a mission tonight, especially against the Mets. That system, by the way, 75, 35, 69% of the money line last 5 seasons. And a $100 better is made $4,150 over those 5 seasons. So I am on the Dodgers for my best bet of the show. Let's move over to Eric Pauly and see what he's got for us as his best bet for the show.
Yeah, I really love that breakdown, John. Thank you for sharing that betting angle. I mean, just being on this show, working with handicappers like yourself and Jesse, even myself, I'm learning a ton every time. So that's a really great and interesting nugget that everybody should kind of utilize and keep in their back pocket for these kind of situations. But for my best bet, this is not a play that I gave out to my premium clients. This would have been included, but I wanted to give it for free for the show. I've been on a little bit of a cold streak. I started the season off plus 40 units. When I started at SportsMemo, increased that by another 10 units, but have been running a little cold. And as Jesse and John, I'm sure will tell you, in this industry, it's inevitable to have a little bit of a cold streak as we're later into the season. Not only are we getting more information, so are bookmakers. So lines are getting a little bit sharper, but I'm certainly looking to bounce back and maintain the plus money that I've been giving and hovering around the 60% mark for the season. But going into my best bet of the day, I'm going with the Marlins team total under 3.5. 3.5 runs is not a lot of runs, so that might look like a kind of tough bet, especially when it was juiced a little bit to the under. I got it at minus 111. Looking at this pitching matchup, I'm not going to focus too much on Sandy Alcantara because the bet is on the Marlins scoring runs, but he's absolutely fantastic. I need to give him his flowers. He might be the Cy Young right now, and he's always going to give the Marlins his best shot when he comes out on the hill, and he's coming off a great outing. But looking at the Marlins, they're facing Alex Wood, and he's a lefty, and the Marlins have the worst OPS in the majors against left-handed pitching with a 608 OPS. Wood lets up a lot of runs and hits. He has allowed 2 or more runs in 2 out of 9 of his starts. He's a 4.81 ERA. But his fielding independent pitching is a 3.61, so it's showing that he's actually pitching a lot better than his ERA is actually stating. The Marlins and the Giants faced off to begin the season, and 2 of those 3 games were low scoring, with the Marlins scoring just 2 runs. They faced Wood's teammate Carlos Rodon and on 4-9, and they only scored 2 runs in that game, and they only scored 1 run in another matchup against the Giants. Of course, it's a new pitcher, so there's more to consider. And again, Wood does let a little bit of too many base runners on in the first place. But given how bad the Marlins are against lefties and how good Sandy has been, I think the Marlins offense might take their foot off the gas tonight. And I'd like them to go under their team total of 3.5 runs for tonight.
Great stuff, Eric. And by the way, we learn an awful lot from you as well. That's what makes us a family at SportsMemo and Wager Talk, and the exchange of ideas. We're not afraid to tell somebody, hey, I'm on this team tonight. What do you think? And because we share alike, and you never reach your potential in any endeavor in this world living in a closet or a vacuum and not reaching out to people that maybe have a little bit more experience than you or more years in the business, et cetera, et cetera. So hats off to that. Let's move over to, speaking of veteran leadership, let's move over to Jesse Schule for his show best bet and see what he's got for us. He looks like he's mad at me.
No, I'm happy to be here. And I'm happy that I agree with Eric here on the Cardinals-Cubs game. You know, you look at this game as a pick'em, and you think, we all know that the Cardinals are better than the Cubs. So how could this be a pick'em? Well, it's certainly not because the Cubs are at home, because they have one of the worst home records in baseball. So it must be something to do with the starting pitching. Both starters are undefeated. You got Liberatore, 1-0, 3.72 ERA. But Keegan Thompson with that 5-0 record, 1.58 ERA, that kind of pops out. That looks really impressive. I mean, 5-0. You got to be pretty good to start off a season 5-0. But upon closer look, the majority of those wins came in relief appearances. He's only started 3 games. He's only gone 5 innings a few times. He's thrown a season-high pitch count of 77 pitches. So even if he's as good as advertised, which seems doubtful at this point, he's probably not going to stick around for that long. And the Cardinals have history on their side. They've won 7 of the last 9 head-to-head meetings versus the Cubs. They've won 5 straight at Wrigley. So Eric is on the Cards. I'm actually on the over. And for the very same reason, I think Keegan Thompson is not as as good as advertised by those numbers. And the over is 7-2 in the Cubs' last 9 versus left-handed pitching. So that's the play, over 8.
That's a great breakdown, Jesse. I see. That's why you can't just go with flash stats. You look at a pitcher, it's 5-0. Well, how's he 5-0? Guy hasn't even averaged thrown, not let alone average. He hasn't thrown more than 77 pitches all season. So that's a little different than when you look at a 5-0 Gonsolin, for example, or Justin Verlander. I mean, it's amazing. But it brought one last thing. It brought attention to me. I remember this from Ralph Michaels. College football teams that are 5-0 that were not ranked in the first week that are now ranked, you fade, right? The same thing in baseball, with the exception of the elite. Like, you would never fade Alabama being 5-0. I would like to think you don't fade Gonsolin if he's 5-0 with a 1.80 ERA. So they do, cross over into different sports, some of these angles, especially when teams get ahead of themselves and they become fades because of that.
A team like Penn State, for example, if they were 5-0, that'd be a good fade, right, Eric?
Certainly.
You had to go and say that. Well, now you may be mad, so I'm going to go to the window and bet Penn State to win the national championship. And I'll show you the ticket. Even if it's just $10 on it, I'm going to show you the ticket. I'll probably get 80-1, just like the Kentucky Derby winner. Yeah, speaking of 80-1, I have Cameron Davis in the PGA, so that's my little outtake here for our show, Major League Baseball. Any final thoughts, Eric?
No, I'm very excited for, again, not trying to digress from baseball, but for this finals game 1. I think it's going to give us a lot of information as handicappers for how to continue to handicap the rest of the series moving forward. So I'm very excited for that tonight.
Awesome. Jesse?
Same thing. All eyes on the game 1 of the finals. And like I said, I got that 3-pack of series prop bets, so I'm looking forward to that.
And I cannot wait to play Texas Hold'em against you, Jesse. And I'm going to make that face. You're going to smile. When it comes time, the flop will happen, and I'll make a face that you will have no clue what I have, but I'm going to make you laugh.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks for your time, and thanks to everyone in the chat room here. We had some pretty good numbers. We appreciate that very much. So on behalf of Jesse and Eric, SportsMemo.com, and our great engineer, Chris, in the background, taking care of all this stuff so I can just talk and talk and talk and talk. Remember 2 things tonight, especially tonight with game 1 and the hockey. Don't get crazy. Bet with your head, never over it, and may all the wins be yours.